a downside of travel social work is that they can cancel you at any point. I didn't think about that. I didn't think that I might have lost my $1,600 deposit. Hey y'all, my name is Jenny and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk to you all about how I became a travel social worker, how much money I made. So if you're interested, keep on watching. So I was working as a hospital social worker and I decided I wanted a little break from that. So at this time, a lot of my girlfriends were traveling and making money. And I was like, let me get in on this. Let me see how much money I can make. It was like money, dollar signs, like, oh. So my coworker ends up connecting me with a travel agent that she had used in the past. And I kind of start talking with him. And at this point, he's like, are you serious? Are you serious about this? Do you really want to travel? Are you sure you're going to do this? Do you really want to? Because they don't want you wasting their time. So they're going to speak in a very frank manner. So expect that. So when I became interested, it was like maybe November. And in December, I got really serious talking to the recruiter. And that December, he got me a job interview. And while I was committed to going, it's one thing to say I'm committed to go, to be like, hey, it's December and you need to leave January. And not end of January, but early January. Like, it's like, okay, whoa. This all happened so fast. So I joined different Facebook groups. I think it's called Travel Social Workers and Nurses. And if you go in the search bar and type up any questions that you have, there's so much information that you can find there, like housing, everything. So I ended up doing the interview. It was for a hospital in California. And when I tell you that the interview was great, I had been to California before, but I had never been to that part of California. So I was really excited. I think the hospital was called Lucille Packard. And after the interview, the recruiter calls me right away. Like I said, they're so persistent. He calls me. He's like, okay, how was it? How do you think you did? And I'm like, okay, like, I think I did okay. I answered their questions. I usually can tell when an interview is going well and if I'm going to get hired. So I was like, I think it went well. And he's like, okay, well, do the social work test. So there's a test that the company sent me to do, like a quiz. And I was like, damn, at this point, like, I hadn't taken a social work test in a while. So I ended up taking that social work test. I passed it. And pretty much the next day or two, they were calling. They were like, hey, we want you to come out to California. And this was an assignment to cover someone who was going out on maternity leave. So this is where I start discussing, like, okay, what's the plan, what to do? I'm getting advice from different people that have traveled. Someone is telling me you should buy your own flight and have it reimburse you. But at this point, like, I was kind of nervous. I didn't want to pay for my own flight. So I just kind of was like, okay, I'll let them pay for the flight there. So they paid for the flight and I signed up to meet up with two ladies about their housing. So when you're about to travel, they tell you about these vaccinations that you need to take, these different forms that you need to do. Everything is, being in the works. And you have a lot. You're running around. You're trying to get everything done. So at this point, I'm running around getting all those things done. And my flight gets booked, everything. My flight gets booked. My car is ready. And I'm getting a little bit nervous. Of course, they put me in the back with a small, of course, when they buy you these tickets, they're not buying you the first class tickets. So they booked my ticket. They said I have to leave this time. And what happened is I went to a doctor that to a doctor that I knew that said, hey, we're going to get your results rushed. It was around the holiday time, but she was like, oh, we're going to get it rushed. And at this point, she asked me, do you want to take this test? I was like, I just went to the doctor. I'm fine, but I guess you can if you want to bill it. I don't mind, I guess. So she ends up taking all the wrong tests, all the tests that I didn't need. She's like, oh, just so you know, these things are all okay. You're good. I was like, yeah, I know I'm good. But what about this test that you were supposed to take? What about this? Whatever. So I ended up having to get my assignment start date pushed back, which was a little frustrating, because at this time, like, the assignment was 13 weeks long. I was going to take a week off. And if you ever take a week off, that's unpaid. You don't get paid anything for that week. So I was like, okay, I was going to take the week off. I was going to, do something. I had my plans. But since my start date got pushed back a week, I had to stay the extra week. And that didn't align with the plans that I had. So either way, everything ends up getting figured out. I fly into California. I end up staying at the hotel. I find the hotel I was staying at, I wish I could remember the name, but they had the best Wagyu. It was so delicious. So I ate that like one night. It was a little pricey, and I was like, I was at this point trying not to spend too much money, because I was like, okay, I'm here to save money and make as much money as possible. So I end up that first day, as soon as I land, I get the car, I go to see the first house. And when I get there, it's a big house full of just travelers. These are people that are traveling. They're mostly, I believe they're mostly travel nurses. And she brings me to the room. The woman was nice and she was kind, but she brings me to a room which was a Jack and Jill room. And if you don't know what that is, it is a room that is connected with a bathroom in the middle. And when I tell you that the lock for the bathroom in my room, it was like, I don't know if you ever seen that Cheeto that's in between the lock. It was like, okay. And she ended up telling me that it's a man that's staying in the other room. So I did not feel comfortable staying in a room where I didn't know the guy, I didn't know the person, and they could really just open up my door when I was sleeping. Like I didn't like that. I didn't feel like that was the safest bet for me. At this point, like I really was thinking, oh, this is the place where I'm staying. This is the house I'm gonna rent from. So I'm at this point, like, I call my backup choice, and I end up going out to see her place when she was available. So I went to see her. It was this woman. She lived alone. She was a nurse, I think. She lived alone. And she was like, hey, you'd have your own room and your own bathroom. And she was the only other person that lived there. I met with her, and I told her that I would get back with her. Went back to the hotel, thought about everything, and I decided that, okay, I felt okay. And at this point, like, before I traveled, I had gotten like all kinds of safety measures that I would use to lock my door. Like I had all the safety precautions I could think of. I watched so many videos about that. So I felt comfortable enough to start renting with her. So at this point, the rent was $1,600 a month. Yeah, $1,600 a month. That was like, which I guess was fair because I had my own bathroom in my own room, and the other house, I think it was like maybe $1,450 or $1,500, but I wouldn't have my own personal bathroom, and that was important to me. So the next day I end up moving in, pay her. She was super informal. She was super kind. She was like, if you want to use my food, like she was open. But me personally, like I bought my own food. I kept my things in separate portions. Like I didn't want to like, become too familiar, and sometimes those things can get awkward. So it's best to kind of keep it clean. And that's what I did. So at this point, you don't get paid that first week you're out there. So like I said, I had to give the woman $1,600 for rent. Get gas if you need to. So I kind of just was like, okay, like here, I paid the $1,600 for rent. I still hadn't got paid. So the first week you don't get paid. And oh yeah, the amount that I was getting paid was a little bit over $3,000 a week. And that was before taxes. And I think after taxes and everything ends up being about $3,000 a week. So that was not a bad deal. That was not a bad deal at all. So I was working at the Lucille Packard Children's Hospital. I really enjoyed it. And one thing about California, they had better workers' laws than I was used to in the state that I live, because my state that I'm from is like, work them to the bone. Work them to the bone. Versus California, people, they had their unions. They had people they could speak up to. It was different. It was a good environment to be in. So I met a couple of people, and I remember I started talking to a friend of mine that I went to grad school with, and I'm like, hey, like I'm doing this travel assignment, you should come. And if you invite someone to come and they come, you get, my travel assignment was like, you get like $500, but after taxes ends up being like $300. So at this point I ended up hearing about a lady that I knew that she was also there, and I was so excited to have someone that I knew there. And that's where I kind of learned a downside of travel social work is that they can cancel you at any point. I didn't think about that. I didn't think that I might have lost my $1,600 deposit. And that's something that's important to know, that your assignment can cancel you at any point if they don't need you anymore. So I was like, whoa. So she had been canceled, but this But the company that she worked for, they worked really hard and fast to find her a new place. So she came to my hospital, but it was a little bit of a drive for her, you know, and that's the kind of sucky part, is that like I said, you rent out with somebody else and then you're kind of stuck in that lease for a little bit until you're able to move. So back to my classmate, I end up convincing her to come, and she comes, and we take the weekends. We go to different, like, we went to wine tours. We went to see, like, we went to this whale watching. We did so many fun things together. Like, this is such a great memory. I love to travel, so I knew that one day I would definitely do this. I would go to do an assignment. And yeah, it was great. I also signed up to do Pilates at this point, and I loved the Pilates. I loved the studio, and I was kind of sad to leave because the instructor in the Pilates studios was so kind. I was a little bit sad to leave, but then when it was my time to leave, they wanted to extend my contract, but I had to go back home to do something. And after that, I ended up just not going back, because they're like, oh, well, never mind, you don't need to come back. Like, I think they have found somebody else, because I told them that I had to go back home. Like, they wanted me for that week, but I was like, no, I have to go back home. So when I was going back, I remember the tip that I got from one that said, buy your own flight. So I bought my own flight, and I filed to get the money back. But then I realized the reason she said that is because there is a stipend of there's a travel stipend that they take out of your whatever, because they're not paying you just $3,000 a week. They're paying the agency something else too. So the money that came out, I realized that I could upgrade myself to a first class ticket. So I ended up telling, like, hey, I had to have another bag, I submitted the claim, and I got myself a first class ticket. And I love that. So if I can, and that flight is a pretty long flight, so if I can get to first class, I will. So I did. So if you have any questions, ask them in the comments. I would love to hear from you if you've ever traveled before, if it's something that you dream of doing. I think you should. And if you want to talk about it, you know, you can, like I said, write a comment, and I would definitely come back and answer you, and we could have a little chat, because I think that's something that every social worker should do. I think you should do a travel assignment. I think you should experience a different hospital. I think you should experience a different population, especially if you're experiencing burnout in your current role. Doing a travel assignment for about 13 weeks could be the breather that you need. A breather, and you get more money. Like I said, I was making $3,000 a week, and they took care of my car. If you made it to the end of the video, I want to thank you all so much for taking the time to watch it, and I look forward to hearing from you in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.